What most fans missed on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Those who grew up watching Mary Richards, the brilliant, independent, and cheerful girl, thought she'd make it after all. However, there are many who have only watched reruns. It ran from 1970 to 1977, and therefore are unaware of how pioneering the Mary Tyler Moore Show was. True, several of these situations in the series seem obsolete by today's standards. However, the show's representation of how women, particularly single women, were treated in the workplace and by society in general was fairly accurate for the period. Our lovely Mary Tyler Moore died in 2017 at the age of 80. Moore made it simpler for future female TV stars to give unconventional female roles the attention they deserved on the small screen. So here's to Moore and the television program that made it all possible. This is everything there is to know about the Mary Tyler Moore Show. All thanks to the Dick Van Dyke Show. Mary Tyler Moore was ready to make the jump into cinema when the Dick Van Dyke Show concluded in 1966. She obtained a deal with Universal Pictures and immediately appeared in 3 films in a row. One of the 3, Thoroughly Modern Millie, starring Julie Andrews, received positive reviews and performed well at the box office. Moore jumped at the opportunity to reconcile with her old buddy and co-star in 1969, with her performance obviously decreasing. She consented to participate in the CBS variety show Dick Van Dyke and the Other Woman, a minor complaint made by Dick Van Dyke's wife, Marjorie, that she would overhear comments about his cheating on Laura when she was out with her husband in public served as the inspiration for Sam Denoff and Bill Persky. No divorces on TV, please. Following the popularity of the program, CBS gave Moore a half-hour slot with a guarantee of 24 episodes. The initial idea for the Mary Tyler Moore Show envisioned Mary Richards as a freshly divorced 30-something who had relocated to a new apartment and needed a job after her husband had left her. However, this seemed to have caused some issues. CBS network analysts advised the show's co-creator, Alan Burns, at the time that there were 4 things viewers would never tolerate viewing in their living room, thereby ensuring the show's demise: New Yorkers, Jews, divorced women, and guys with mustaches. Again, based on their study, this is what they concluded. Despite the warnings, Despite the biased warning, Burns and his team elected to retain Rhoda, the Jewish New York transplant, Valerie Harper. Yes, she performed terribly with audiences at first, but she warmed up after a few episodes. You'll see why shortly. They did drop the divorce aspect because screening audiences couldn't tell the difference between her new role and Laura Petrie's character from the Dick Van Dyke Show. Audiences publicly despised Mary for abandoning such a wonderful person as Dick Van Dyke. Instead, the writers transformed Mary into a woman who had just terminated a 2-year engagement and was ready to establish a new life in her own apartment, depending only on herself. A novel notion for a television leading lady. The story behind MTM's cat. Moore's husband, Grant Tinker, came up with the moniker MTM Enterprises for their new production firm. Moore wasn't averse to it, after all, her name was on it, and it's only natural if it reminds you of MGM. The resemblance is not lost on anyone. Someone mentioned at an early staff meeting that since MTM was a little firm, it may be nice to have a kitten meow, like the MGM lion. The crew agreed, so one of them went to a Minneapolis animal shelter and discovered numerous orange kittens. They wanted a cat with lion-like hues. They selected the cat that meowed the loudest. Mimsy was the kitten's name, and she ended up appearing in a variety of incarnations in the production tags of MTM Productions. A crew member eventually adopted Mimsy and sent her to San Bernardino, where she lived up until the age 20. First impressions go a long way. MTM took the unprecedented step of performing the first episode twice. They first invited a studio audience to see the dress rehearsal. They had cameras capturing it so that the actors and crew could watch and analyze it before the pilot began shooting a few days later. The performers noticed that they weren't receiving the laughs they expected. post-show audience survey found that they despised Rhoda's character, claiming she was overly cruel to Mary in the episode's opening scene. That initial impression, it turns out, left a bad taste in their mouths for the remainder of the show. It was not at all what producers desired. A frantic move to save the pilot. While the writers were scrambling to find a solution to repair their program without a big redesign, script supervisor Marjorie Mullen had an idea. She chose to begin the episode with Phyllis Lindstrom, Cloris Leachman, and her daughter Bess, Linda Gerritsen, showing Mary about her new apartment. They came upon that foolish, nasty Rhoda, as Phyllis referred to her, on the balcony cleaning the windows since she assumed it was going to be her apartment. Mullen reasoned that this would offer Bess a line that wasn't in the script. Aunt Rhoda's truly a lot of fun. Mom despises her. In the end, the tweak worked. If a small girl felt Rhoda was cool, the audience would be more forgiving of her. By the time Friday's tape arrived, the chuckles were coming in the right places. The first American show to The Mary Tyler Moore program was the first U.S. network television program to break character and broadcast a curtain call. After a great 7-year run, Grant Tinker and Mary Tyler Moore decided to call it quits and stop their program while it was still receiving high ratings, rather than risk a dip in quality and cancellation. It was one of the few series finales that allowed the characters to say their goodbyes within the framework of the program. Moore also presented each cast member to the crowd for a last curtain call just before the end credits played. It was just another method for the show to leave its imprint on history. A famous episode had everyone in stitches. Chuckles Bites the Dust is one of the show's most well-known episodes. It was about a clown who presented the Children's Hour on WJM. Mary Tyler Moore was busting up every time Mr. FIFO was referenced after Mr. Chuckles left the program. Mary, was meant to be sad and sorrowful while the rest of the media laughed over his strange death. But she couldn't stop giggling throughout every rehearsal. Her cheeks were subsequently described as hurting from biting them so hard that she fought to stop laughing. There were 3 different actors on the show who played the part before he died. Mr. Chuckles was mentioned more on the program than he was shown. The iconic hat toss opening. Remember how the sitcom started? At the conclusion of the scene, Mary spins around and throws her blue beret into the air. You may have to watch it again, but the lady in the background, Hazel Frederick, was really shopping on the streets of Minneapolis when they were filming that scene. For many years, Frederick's identity was unknown, but she's renowned for her stunned double take when she witnessed Moore hurl her hat into the air. When Moore's memoir, After All, was released, she attended a book signing. Moore pulled Frederick on stage in front of 5,000 people and introduced her as the co-star, which was wonderful. Whose wife was on the show? Betty Ford, the president's wife, made a guest appearance in 1976 as a result of the show's popularity and what it had done for women's rights. Moore subsequently checked herself into the Betty Ford Clinic for a drinking issue in an odd coincidence. It's something she discusses frankly in her book and interviews. Moore was diagnosed with diabetes early in the course of the episode. Moore got a possibly life-threatening diagnosis of type 1 diabetes before the second season ever aired. Moore described her experience with the disease in her 2009 book, Growing Up Again. Moore lost most of her sight in her latter years owing to nerve degeneration. Starting a fad. On the Dick Van Dyke Show, Moore was the first to wear the soon-to-be trendy capri trousers. She insisted on wearing them in every episode of the program. Women were supposed to wear just dresses back then, as you may recall. Moore, on the other hand, had no desire to comply. She even started a capri pants craze that spread throughout the nation. Moore's big break came in a Hot Point ad. In 1956, she danced as Happy Hot Point in a commercial for the Hot Point home appliance brand. She was just 17 years old and dressed in an all-in-one gray leotard and corset. In the corny commercial, she appeared out of an oven and exclaimed, "Hi, Harriet, aren't you pleased you purchased a Hot Point?" Moore went against type. Moore was a fan of both The Dick Van Dyke Show and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. However, in her latter years, she enjoys going against her conventional character type. She even enjoyed startling people with her pranks. Moore's hosting of Saturday Night Live in 1989 was one of the better instances. She spoke the word penis during her memorable speech. She was merely referring to the previous week when presenter Matthew Broderick participated in a skit and used the term 28 times. Most folks were amused to hear her repeat the word twice. It was quite a sight. Spin-offs and reunions. The Mary Tyler Moore Show spawned 3 spin-off shows, one of which was the comedy Rhoda from 1974 to 1978, Phyllis from 1975 to 1977, and the hour-long drama Lou Grant from 78 to 82 were the other 2. Moore and Harper then reprised their roles in a 2-hour ABC made-for-TV special called Mary and Rhoda in 2000. CBS also aired 2 rerun specials, Mary Tyler Moore, the 20th Anniversary Show in 91, and the Mary Tyler Moore Reunion in 2002. The remaining cast members appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 2008 to reminisce about their time together. Winfrey, a lifelong fan of Moore and the program, had her team replicate the newsroom and Mary's apartment sets for the reunion. In popular culture, even after the last episode aired in 1977, the program remained popular. A number of songs, films, and TV shows, including The Simpsons, reference or parody the show's characters and events. Of course, there were parodies on Saturday Night Live, Mad TV, and Mystery Science Theater 3000. The program was also referenced in the movies. Ron Burgundy's dog, Baxter, is an homage to the character of Ted Baxter in Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. And the leader of the newspaper crew is Ed, commemorating Ed Asner. The characters in Romy and Michelle's high school reunion quarrel with each other. I'm the Mary and you're the Rhoda. R.I.P. Mary Tyler Moore. Moore was most remembered for her work in Thoroughly Modern Millie in 1967 and Ordinary People in 1980, both of which garnered her an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. Moore's appearances on The Mary Tyler Moore Show and The Dick Van Dyke Show, according to the New York Times, helped create a new picture of American femininity, questioning gender preconceptions and standards. Moore's outwardly cheery attitude and signature wide, toothy grin had an inner fragility that resonated with an audience experiencing the new hardships of modern-day living, according to The Guardian. She was also an animal rights and diabetes prevention campaigner, for those who are unaware. R.I.P. Valerie Harper. Valerie Harper passed away in 2019 at the age of 80. She told People magazine in 2013 that she had leptomeningeal carcinomatosis, which is cancer cells in her brain. She was only given a few months to live. Yet 7 months later, she was dancing on Dancing with the Stars. Harper was previously diagnosed with lung cancer in 2009. They identify her as genuine. Harper replied when asked why her character Rhoda was so popular with viewers. She struggled with her weight and felt insecure. She was from New York, but she also had a winning streak. She could be aggressive and stand on her own. After her passing, her co-star, Ed Asner, who is now 90, tweeted, "Good night, lovely. I'll see you later." Betty White is still kicking it. During the 4th season of The Mary Tyler Moore Show in 1973, White appeared as the man-hungry Sue Ann Nivens. Her performance won her 2nd and 3rd Emmy Awards. She herself said that the part was the pinnacle of her career. She did, however, characterize her character's image as icky sweet, describing herself as the absolute epitome of feminine passivity in 1975. NBC replaced White as hostess of the Tournament of Roses broadcast. They said she was too closely associated with CBS due to her sudden fame on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. "It was tough for White to see someone else perform my parade," she told People magazine. Betty White died in 2021 at the age of 99. The tragic fate of one guest actress. Have you seen the Green Dress episode? Will Mary Richards go to jail? It was somewhat contentious at the time. If you look closely at Mary's dress, you'll see that it has cutaway holes up and down both sides. A lot of flesh for primetime television in the 1970s. Moore was accustomed to bearing that much flesh. However, the storyline of that episode was Mary attempting to assist a buddy on parole in starting a new profession in fashion design. Barbara Colby portrayed a prostitute called Sherry. Unfortunately, Colby was engaged in a fatal situation shortly after appearing on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. She and a buddy were ambushed and shot in a parking lot in Venice, California. She died suddenly at the age of 36 in 1975. Tragedy after the end of the show. Moore's son, Richie Meeker, inadvertently killed himself with a gunshot wound in 1980. He was just 24 at the time. Meeker was her first husband's son, Richard Meeker. Moore stated in her biography that her hectic work prevented her from being as present for her kid as she might and should have been throughout his formative years. Moore was barely 18 years old when she had Richie in 1955. Richie was a gun collector who was well-versed in guns. His roommate said that it was an accident and that he was not suicidal at all. Moore appeared in the film Ordinary People the same year he died, portraying a widow whose son almost killed himself. She said that she chose the part to cope with personal sorrow.